Just over 2 years ago, I made a video where I rank every 3D Mario game, and let me just rip the band-aid off, that video is awful. Not only does it visually look atrocious, and I made jokes I probably could have done without, but my ranking is on all the games meant nothing since I didn't play any of those games for the video. So for this video, not only am I including the 2D Mario games, I've spent the past few months playing and beating every single mainline Mario game to get my real thoughts on each game. These are all the games I am ranking. I thought of adding Luigi U, but Mario is nowhere to be seen in that game, and Mario 64 DS is just a remake. This time, I am putting each game onto an ordered tier list. There's no F tier since I don't really think there is a flat out bad Mario game. With all that out of the way, let us begin this cliche topic. Super Mario Bros. I'm sure you all know at this point that this game is the entire reason video games exist today, and kind of the whole reason I made this channel. However, I am tossing that to the side for this ranking. We are talking about the game's year, not their historical impact. Playing through this game can go a bunch of ways. You can either play through each level in order and progress to the final level, or you can enter the pipe in 1-1, go to the secret exit in 1-2, and then make your way to World 4 in a matter of minutes. I feel like this approach is quite cool these days, as it doesn't force you to play the levels you've already experienced, and if you know what you are doing, you can skip a good chunk of the game you don't feel like doing. Some people may see skipping huge chunks of a game as a bad thing, but I think it's a great way to let more experienced players bypass content they've already played a bunch of times. Every once in a while, when I have nothing better to do, I like to just run through this game in like 30 minutes. It's always a fun time to just blast through and beat the whole thing. This game obviously introduces us to the main element of the Mario games like the enemies, items like the Super Mushroom, Fire Flower and Superstar, and various obstacles. It also features songs that will echo through the games that we will talk about next. While playing through this game, you may encounter some levels that aren't necessarily hard in the challenging way, but more so in the unfair way, like in the maze level. And the lack of themes can get sort of boring after a while, but other than that, I still think this game is a solid time and I am giving it a B tier. Super Mario Bros. 2. Okay folks, let's play a game of Say the Thing You Are Legally Obliged to Say. I will reveal these curtains, and it will reveal a sentence that I am required to say, and you all need to say it just before it's revealed. Ready? The entire premise of this game goes completely against almost everything that the original game did and introduces concepts that are never seen again in the series. You got your turnip plucking, new enemies like Shy Guys, Bob-ombs, Ostros, Birdos, what it says right there, and 4 playable characters all with their own abilities. I personally don't like this style of game as much as Mario 1's of course, and I got frustrated with even more annoying levels in this game than in Mario 1. The boss fights in this game, while cool in concept, are pretty hit or miss for me. Whether they do the same thing over and over, or just aren't that fun to fight. And at the end of the game, it is revealed that the whole game is a dream. I also found out this was a dream this morning. Overall, this game is an interesting one, but one I'm personally not much of a fan of. D tier. Super Mario Bros. The Lost Levels. I remember a few years ago that I actually preferred this game to Mario 1 since I preferred its difficulty. I'm pretty sure I played like 3 levels, so this game is an oddity since it's a sequel to Mario 1. There are way more annoying levels in this game, like the ones where you have to guess which path you have to go down, which I've never really been a fan of in any of the Mario games. Also, I know this was back in the 80s, but couldn't they have thrown in any more new interesting ideas other than a poison mushroom? Sure, there are a couple new textures, and mushroom platforms, and yeah. Safe to say I'm also not a fan of this game either, so it sits in the D tier. Wow, 2 D tiers in a row, this series must suck. Never mind. Super Mario Bros. 3. This is the first sequel to Super Mario Bros. That I would consider a worthy sequel. I guess third time really is the charm. Or fourth, I don't know. This game comes out swinging with many more ideas than the previous 2 games combined that not only do I enjoy more, but left a bigger impact on the rest of the series. Firstly, the roster of items is incredible and can still be argued as one of the best even to this very day. You got the mainstays along with the Super Leaf, which can let you fly and attack enemies, the Tanuki suit which does the former and transforms you into a statue, the Hammer suit which lets you throw hammers, the Frog suit that greatly enhanced movement in the water, and even some special items like the P-Wing which lets you skip levels if you want. Some of these items even impact the all-new map system like the music box and the flute. The levels in these maps are also great and feature tons of variety by introducing new concepts in every single one, like having everything be giant, everything be munchers, everything be pipes, everything be fake. Every level feels like a new experience and makes me want to try out all these levels. Aside from Mario 2, this was the first game in the series to introduce mini-bosses, those being Boom Boom and the Koopalings. They are pretty easy, but I still like them for feeling like a conclusion to the world. The final boss also feels like a final boss, wow! This game honestly does everything that a Mario game should do. It has creative items, fun levels, and interesting ideas. All this adds to make one of my favourite games in the series. S tier. Super Mario Land. This is as simple as a video game can get. 12 levels, 1 power-up, and a dream. a Mario game for your pants. So being on the Game Boy, this game can't really do a whole lot. Its only power-up is the Super Ball flower, the controls aren't really based on physics and more so based off of lines of code, and there are once again only a dozen levels. It took me like 30 minutes to beat this game. However, there was something about it that I oddly liked. I think it's the same reason I like Sonic 3D Blast. I just think it's kinda cute. It's a cute little game trying to be a Mario game on a portable device. It features Koopas with nuclear weapons on their back. How much cuter can you get? The music is also surprisingly good, and the concepts are quite unique even today. You got Sphinx as the main enemy, a new damsel in distress, and even levels where you pilot a submarine or a plane. Aside from that, there's not really much to talk about when it comes to this game. It did annoy me less than Mario 2, so I will be putting it into C. Super Mario World. Jumping from a handful of games that were 8-bit and maybe looking a little rough, it was a breath of fresh air to be playing a game that looks as beautiful as this. The pixel art of this game has aged really well and is on par with the pixelated styles of indie games today. The game itself is interesting as it seems to have a stronger focus on everything surrounding the levels. There are tons of secrets you can find that take you to new and unique locations, which is pretty amazing for this game's time. You could be sent to new worlds, access special levels, or even get previews of what upcoming worlds are like. Yoshi is introduced in this game and he is of course a fun time. The Cape Feather is also a great power-up. You may argue that it breaks the game since it lets you skip levels, but I think the fact that the item doesn't show up in many levels keeps it from becoming too overpowered. I also like that you can save an item in case you get hit to avoid being Small Mario for too long. The bosses are still quite easy, but are definitely more creative this time around. There are a couple of things about this game that prevent it from being perfect for me. I noticed that there aren't really many level themes utilized in this game. The first world has you traveling through a grassy plains, and then another grassy plains, and then a cave, okay, and then back to grassy plains. There are only like 5 or 6 themes utilized, but most of the time it will just be the grass theme repeated in some way. I also think the item variety isn't the greatest. Aside from the mainstays, you really only have the Cape Feather and Yoshi if you want to count that. I also had to look up how to beat the Forest of Illusion. This is still a game that holds up really well today though, and I would consider it a must play since it's one of the more consistently good Mario games. A tier. Super Mario Land 2 6 Golden Coins. This is that game in the series that I kind of just played and didn't think of it much afterwards, which is sort of strange since like Mario Land 1 it has a bunch of unique ideas. There are a bunch of zones you have to play through in order to get the 6 golden coins and reach the final boss, and these zones are very creative in comparison to most Mario levels being grass or underground or desert or snow or castle or boat. The carrot is a fun power-up since it requires you to spam a button to infinitely hover like there's no tomorrow. The final boss being Wario was a choice too, and yeah, I just don't have as much of a passion for this one. It's like an hour long and I don't care for the soundtrack. I honestly feel like I care for Mario Land 1 more since it's the quirkier, more charming and has a better soundtrack, but Mario Land 2 is undeniably the better game, so I will put it just above Land 1 in C tier. Super Mario 64. You guys aren't gonna believe this! It's the first 3D game, and it revolutionized the whole industry! So yeah, as I'm sure you know, there is quite a huge difference in Mario 64 in comparison to the previous Mario games. He got a haircut. After playing so many 2D games back to back, it was nice to be able to play a game where you can go in any direction. The controls are really fun to mess around with, and there are a variety of cool moves you can pull off in this game that you can't do in any other Mario games. You can long jump into a wall jump, you can triple jump into a dive for some great altitude, you can drastically increase movement speed by repeatedly diving and rolling or repeatedly long jumping. You can even do it backwards and cheat. The levels you get to use these controls are not great. Bob-omb Battlefield is an amazing first level, Womp's Fortress increases the difficulty, the slide levels are a nice change of pace, and other levels such as Cool Cool Mountain, Lethal Lava Land, Tiny Huge Island, and the Bowser levels are a blast. Each level has a unique array of missions to tackle, and most of them do something to stand out on their own. You could be throwing sentient bombs until they poof away, you could be scaling a mountain and get your hat stolen by a monkey, you could use a penguin as a meat shield against a giant snowman that's trying to blow you off a platform. The possibilities are endless. Well, the possibilities are 120. There are a couple issues with the game today, since some people don't like the camera controls, there may be janky physics sometimes, but I can push that all to the side since this was the first good 3D game. I could always put this game on my TV and find something fun to do, whether it's trying to exploit glitches or just having fun controlling Mario in these environments. There's hardly a dull moment in this whole game, and it would feel wrong to put it any lower than S tier. Super Mario Sunshine. I was excited to jump into this game as I had never made it very far into the campaign. The story is very different for a Mario game, but it's delivered in quite a funny way if you ask me. There's only like 3 major cutscenes in the whole game, and I can never take any of them seriously, and that mainly has to do with the voice acting. Not that it's bad, I just think it's a little cheesy, especially for a Mario game. At first I wasn't big on the controls since they tend to overcorrect what you want to do, but once I got used to it, it felt fun to just mess around with FLUDD and change its setting on the fly. Most of the levels you explore are solid too, with some standouts being Bianco Hills, Gelato Beach, and Noki Bay. The bosses are also quite different. You got the Gooper Blooper, the two-faced eel with bad teeth, and Big Man. What's funny is that most of the annoying parts of this game I'd see talked about on the internet I had little issues with. People take issue with the blue coins, but I honestly didn't mind them since I see them as neat little side collectibles you can seek out if you want some extra shines. I beat the pachinko machine in like 5 tries since I knew to get the top left coin you have to hold left. Corona Mountain is also an easy level, you all just have to have a little patience. The soundtrack is quite chirpy and very memorable too. Alright, I've gaslit all of you. Despite this being the Mario game about polishing up goop, this is by far the most unpolished Mario game. Sometimes the camera will just refuse to cooperate with you, sometimes Mario will fall off a cliff despite you barely moving the joystick, sometimes the game won't pause when a cutscene plays, sometimes the shine appears but you die because the game will refuse to get you out of danger, sometimes if you want to get a single bloody pineapple, it won't spawn after like 7 attempts, and when it does it bounces and despawns, and sometimes... It got to the point where I was doubting I was playing a Mario game. Like, this is the series known for how refined the gameplay and mechanics are, and Sunshine is sitting right there. Most of the sub-areas I didn't find fun. Most of them feel like poorly made Roblox obbies, and you just have to get lucky if you want to pass. Some of the main levels I didn't enjoy as well. Ryuko Harbor is the second level in the game, yet is harder than most final Mario levels. Pianta Village I didn't like for the most part because of the annoying underside that doesn't do the controls any justice, since Y on the Pro Controller is to punch the grates, but when you do that while hanging below a grate, you let go, Nintendo, what is wrong with you? Good grief, you want to know the part that ticked me off the most? Before going into Sunshine, I already knew that you had to collect 50 shines to reach the Bowser fight. So I complete the missions I am capable of beating, I reach 50 shines, and what happens? Nothing. Nothing happens. But what you actually have to do is defeat Shadow Mario in every level, meaning you are forced to beat most of the main missions in all the levels whether you like it or not, and get a minimum of 50 stars. All to unlock a final boss that is easier than getting out of bed in the morning. I am a big fan of hard games, but this is hard in the more unbalanced and unfair kind of way. Some of you may call this a skill issue, but trust me, I know what I am talking about. One of my favourite games of all time is Celeste, a 2D platformer that I would argue is harder than Mario Sunshine. But the reason I actually enjoy the game is because the difficulty comes from the level design being centered around precision-based platforming. I have died like 3,000 times in this game, and not once did I ever feel rage or feel like it was the game's fault that I died. I always put the blame on me for failing to complete a section of a level. Half my deaths in Mario Sunshine feel like they shouldn't have even happened in the first place and come from the convoluted design of the game itself. An absolute embarrassment to the game that came before it. I would still call this a fine enough game, but I wouldn't recommend trying to beat it unless you are morbidly curious. It's very good and very bad. C tier. New Super Mario Bros. Despite this game's immense popularity, I only bought this game last year since my first console was the Wii, so I never played the DS in its heyday. I have however played every other New Super game, so despite this being the one people say is the one who did it first, I did it last. So this was the game to bring back the 2D Mario formula in full force and spawned in many more to come. The level design in this game isn't too particularly interesting if you ask me. Sure, new concepts are introduced in each level, but they usually feel quite streamlined and not too interesting in my opinion. Mario 3 had things like bricks that jump out at you, pipes that act as some kind of puzzle where you have to figure out which one to take, and a sun chasing you throughout a desert. I just remember those games' ideas more than this game's. The item variety isn't too interesting. All there really is the Mega Mushroom, which is a complete gimmick, the Mini Mushroom, which is kinda cool but very situational, and the Blue Shell, which is quite a fun item to mess around with. That's all this game offers though. The boss fights this time around are unique for 2D Mario standards. You got the Mummy Pokey, the Purple Cheep Cheep, and the Multi-Mole in a tank. What is it with Mario games and weapons used in war? The highlight of this whole package is definitely the minigames. They do seem like something you would enjoy playing in the back of a car as a kid. My favourite one is definitely Luigi Poker, only because I have what's known as Balatro brain rot. Overall, this game is solid enough and angered me less than Mario Sunshine. B tier. Super Mario Galaxy. I've held this game in a very high regard for quite a while now, calling it one of my favourite video games, so getting to play it again was quite a great treat. Everything about this game is great. The story is very good for Mario standards. Ultimately, it's a pretty simple story, but even just the little things like the intro to the game, Rosalina's storybook, and the cutscene are given much more of an emphasis in this game. And I'd say it works very well for a game that's predominantly about space. The cinematography of these cutscenes is also spectacular, and it's easy to forget that they were originally on the Wii. The art style of this game has held up extremely well in my opinion. The colours are very appealing and the aesthetics of everything are spot on. The Comet Observatory is a charming area to roam around in and I enjoy its layout. The gameplay is also brilliant since it takes the limited moveset Mario was given and uses it to its fullest potential in every level. We got Honey Hive, Ghostly, Battle Rock, Beach Bowl, Toy Time, Sea Slide, Deep Dark, Freeze Flame, Dreadnought, and Multi-Molten Galaxy. All spectacular levels with a great variety of missions, in addition to the accompanying extra comments that help spice up these levels. The bosses in some of these levels are also fun, like Mega Leg, King Caliente, and the Fire Dino Piranha. Bowser fights are really cool, especially the final one as it goes through a bunch of phases. And man, the music in this game. What more needs to be said about the OST? The highs are just so high and make playing the levels much more exciting. Things like the epic military orchestra of Battle Rock Galaxy, the fire and ice variants of the Freeze Flame Galaxy, and the determined ambitious band of Boy Base Galaxy. Now what bad things are there about this game? Well, the red star wasn't utilized enough. It felt like they were going to design more levels around it and only used it in the observatory, and even then it's placed in inconvenient spots. The items in general felt underutilized. Yeah, that's all I got. S tier video game. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. New Super Mario Bros. Wii. With this being the first Mario game I ever played, I do have a bit of bias towards it, but I will try my best to look aside that for this ranking. New Super Mario Bros. Wii was released on the Wii, and since it was on the Wii, it incorporated motion controls. However, I would argue the motion controls benefit this game more since it allows for concepts to be introduced that might not have worked as well. Not only do you have the little twirl in the air that lets you perfect landings, but the motion controls allow for controllable rotating platforms, speedy platforms, and the ability to jump out of another player's grasp. Oh yeah, multiplayer was introduced in this game, and it is definitely a fun time if everyone is as civil as possible. Nah, I'm kidding, The item variety in this game is one of the best in the 2D Mario series. We got the Propeller Mushroom, which is quite satisfying to use since you have to shake the remote to use it, the Ice Flower, which was technically in Mario Galaxy first, but its true form was definitely introduced in this game I would say. The Penguin Suit is also a fun time since sliding around is similar to the Blue Shell. The Mini Mushroom also returns along with, yeah, you get the idea. In my opinion, the level design is very interesting and a lot of the levels are very memorable. I'm probably saying this since I played this game a ton when I first got it, but even then, levels like 3-1, 3-3, 5-4, 6-3, 6 Tower, 7 Tower, 7 Castle, 8-1, 8-7, 8 Airship, 8 Castle, 9-7 and 9-8 are just a few of this game's highlights. These levels are much larger than DS's, and in my opinion that's a good thing as it encourages exploration to find all the star coins, especially since unlike DS's, getting every star coin in this game actually means something since you unlock the special world, which is a pretty great reward for getting every star in a corresponding world. While most of the bosses are pretty simple, most of them are pretty creative and challenging, like Iggy's final fight, Ludwig's final fight, and the Bowser Jr. fights. The final boss is also amazing and is probably my favourite final boss in the entire Mario series. There are a few gripes I have with this game, like the Toad missions being sort of pointless, and maybe some of the levels aren't too interesting. Besides that, this is an extremely solid game, and an improvement to DS in my opinion. You probably think I'm only saying this because this is my first Mario game, and that's because I am. A tier. Super Mario Galaxy 2. This video game is a genuine masterclass of design in everything it sets out to accomplish. The story is a lot less serious than Galaxy 1, and it serves as a nice contrast to both games so Galaxy 2 doesn't feel like the same game. The hub world isn't also as big, but you don't take as long to get to the levels. And man, the levels. Every single galaxy in this game is good. I'd probably consider the worst one to be Battle Belt Galaxy, but even that level isn't too bad, it's just a little uninspired. Every level is filled to the brim with variety. You've got levels like Yoshi Star, Cosmic Cove, Wild Glide, Fluffy Bluff, Puzzle Plank, Melty Monster, Boo Moon, Shipper Burn, Starshine Beach, Chompworks, Flipsville, Flashback, Space Storm, Fleet Glide, Cloudy Court, Toll Trunk, Fleet's Fake, Bowser's Galaxy Dinner, Flip Out, and Macadam's Galaxy. All levels with really fun missions to tackle. At one point, you may be digging through an entire planet, spitting spike balls back at a big Lakitu with Yoshi, running on walls with Yoshi, using Yoshi's tongue as a grappling hook, flying with a bird through a forest and a crumbling factory, exploring a hazy underwater cave, opening a pop book, guiding a Goomba to a robot, playing bowling, bumping a Chomp off a ledge, sliding down a tree trunk, guiding a Chomp down a path. What more needs to be said about the missions of the game? There is also an absurd amount of bosses, and a lot of them are pretty fun and even challenging. I especially like the Bowser Jr. fights like the Mega Hammer and the Boomstay Machine. The game in general is a lot harder than Galaxy 1, which is great as I enjoy games with a fair difficulty. The soundtrack is just as good as the first game, and the post-game content in my opinion is incredible and basically doubles the whole game by making you explore all the galaxies. As for the problems I have with this game, yeah, I legitimately got nothing. Mario Galaxy 2 does everything a good Mario game needs. Phenomenal level design, unique power-ups like the Cloud Flower, Rock Mushroom Drill, and Yoshi's Fruits, a wide variety of boss fights, a plethora of bonus game content, and a lack of any big flaws. This is definitely my favourite game in the whole series and needs a port or remake to the Switch too, so that more people get to try out this outstanding experience. S tier. I'm recording this on October 2nd, so yeah, this is already quite outdated as I say this. Super Mario 3D Land. Without counting 64DS, this is the first 3D Mario game on a handheld, even if it didn't make it obvious enough. I think this is one of those games you have to play on original hardware to respect it fully, because I think this game works really well for a handheld device. The game isn't too long and each level is bite-sized and still has 3 star coins to collect if you want to explore a little bit. I think if this game were to be ported to a console, it would lose a bit of its magic, especially since you wouldn't be able to access this game's entire gimmick, 3D mode. This is one of the few 3DS games that took advantage of the 3D mode. Turn up that slider and after being convinced you aren't getting diagnosed for astigmatism, the game actually looks 3D. Like the effect actually works if you line it up correctly. This is used in certain areas of levels to give yourself a better grasp on what you're dealing with. It is a little odd that this is the whole game's personality though. Like for Mario Sunshine you were on a vacation with a jetpack, in Mario Galaxy you went to space, Mario 3D Land? Optical illusions. The levels themselves are pretty solid and each one introduces a new concept. You got pixel art in the sky, a Zelda-like level, and would you believe it, a clock one! The items this time around are solid enough, I'd say. The Super Leaf is extremely useful in this game since you can correct your jumps, and I think the Boomerang Flower is cool since you can jump around your boomerang and take out a bunch of enemies that way. Aside from the final boss, which is actually really cool, the boss lineup is quite weak since all they got is Boom Boom and Pom Pom. Also, can we just take a moment to appreciate how mediocre Pom Pom's music is? Also, I'm not a fan of Mario games doing this, but going through all of the final world, building up to the last level of the game, only for it to tell you to go back to previous levels and collect star coins is pretty stupid in my opinion. I'd be fine with it if the game told the player in advance, but telling you right as you confront the final level just kills any anticipation for me. Also, I know this is a Mario game on a handheld, but this game is way too easy. I died like 5 times in my playthrough. I would have appreciated a bit of a challenge. Although that challenge mostly comes from the post-game content, which arguably is the best in the whole Mario series. The amount of levels literally doubles, and although it's just a bunch of remixed levels, they do show off some new concepts like a new power-up and Prankster Comet-like missions. Mario 3D Land is a fun time, but isn't too interesting in the grand scheme of things. B tier. New Super Mario Bros. 2. Yet another game in the Tomato Soup series, and despite being the third game in the series, it's labelled as the second. Probably would have made more sense to call it NSMB3, since the game focuses quite a lot on the Super Leaf. The main gimmick of this game is that there are coins everywhere. Every level has an abundance of coins, and there are plenty of gadgets in the levels that give you more coins. Some of these are pretty cool, like the golden brick block you get to wear and have to run around to get a bunch of money, and the golden ring which turns all the enemies into gold. There's even a gold flower in a few levels that turns things into moolah. I'd be terrified to see Mario's income tax. The thing is, despite the game being about coins, they don't really do much with them aside from telling you to get as many as possible. However, all you get for collecting 1,000,000 is a different title screen, wahoo! The level design of this game is quite unremarkable if you ask me, nothing like what you'd see in New Super Wii. There are some cool ideas in some of these levels, but most of them end before the second part of the song plays. Most of them just kinda put me to sleep. Wake up! And speaking of songs, there's like no original music in this whole game, and anything that's new is just a remix of a previous Mario track. This game overall feels like a downgrade to Wii. With the focus being on coins, the game is easy as pumpkin pie since you get a ridiculous amount of 1-ups, there's less item variety, no Yoshi, no multiplayer, the world map is a straight line, every tower fight is a Reznor, there's no airship levels, no Bowser Jr. or Kamek fights, and I did notice a significant amount of Ghost House levels, which is a little odd. This sure is a video game that exists. It released, and I played it all the way through. It's an okay enough game, but for me, it's a C tier. New Super Mario Bros. U, another entry in the Mushroom Soup series. This game came out only a few months before New Soup 2, so at the time people were very exhausted of all these games. But now is today. How does the game fare now? The new power-up this time around is the Acorn, which allows you to glide and get a slight boost in altitude when you press the right trigger. In my opinion, this item is alright, but it's nowhere near as good as the Propeller Mushroom. The level design is pretty solid. I would say this game is harder than New Super Wii, and there are some good ideas in some of the levels. You're also not locked to playing as Mario if you are player 1. You can be any of the characters like Luigi, this guy, that guy, her, and Nabbit. By the way, I played the deluxe edition of this game that doesn't add much aside from a crown. This game also has a bunch of challenges you can take on. I like these since it can actually be quite challenging to get the gold medals in all these challenges. It's cool to see that there's a part of the game for those who want a good challenge. There is one actual problem I have with the main game though. I don't know if anyone else feels this way, maybe it's just me going insane, but I wasn't a big fan of the star coins in most of the levels. The majority of them just feel like you need to find a secret wall and bada bing bada boom, you got the coin. There are some cool ideas on how to collect the star coins, but I feel like most of them just lacked a good challenge. It just kinda felt like you had to hug every wall to see if a coin was in there. I also try my best to not compare these games to the others, but the amount of things this game takes from Wii is criminal. The game is set up in almost the exact same way. In World 1, both games have a cave level as their second level, Yoshi is introduced, and there's a water level. In World 2, the path splits and there's a dark cave level. Yeah, I've really only scratched the surface, but I kid you not. When I reached the checkpoint in the Tower of the Snow World, I said to myself, if this next section features a rising platform with dry bones like it does in Wii, I'm gonna lose it. Oh. It just kinda got to a point where I couldn't look past the fact that these two are very similar games. I also think I still prefer Wii's approach to level design overall. I know I said U's design is harder, but I still feel like I remember Wii's levels more. U just doesn't have as many meaningful set pieces in my opinion. Sure, there's things like the painted swamp level, the underwater level with Dragon Eel, but I think Wii had a stronger variety of set pieces to keep the game more entertaining for longer. Overall, this game is a good time, the bonus content is good, but in comparison to Wii, I'd still give it a B tier. Super Mario 3D World. So I've never gotten around to beating this game, so it's time to finally do that. This game is a sequel to Mario 3D Land of all things, and expands upon it in every way. The controls are pretty smooth, especially on the Switch port. The item selection is pretty amazing. The new standout is the Super Bell, which is a pretty well designed power up since you can climb up walls and attack, and a selection of mighty fine boxes to choose from like a light, a cannon, and a Goomba. The double cherry is a really cool idea, and it's fun to try and maintain all your clones, but I wish the item was utilised in more levels. You can play as 4 different characters, and they all function the same as they did in Mario 2. Toad is my favourite, since if you play as him on the Switch, you get a free Sonic the Hedgehog game. You can also unlock Rosalina later on, and she can do the spin for Mario Galaxy. The reason these characters are playable is because local multiplayer is now an option in a 3D Mario for the first time, and it can be a fun time if you're playing with the right people. The level design is extremely varied, and each level brings a new idea to the table. They're structured similarly to Mario 3D Land, as you can collect 3 green stars in each level. Some of these levels can genuinely be pretty challenging as well, which is great to see. There are also more bosses than just Boom Boom and Pom Pom, wow! Mr. Krat is kinda cool, although a little finicky without the Super Bell. Motley Boss Blob is interesting and unique, Kinkathunk is sorta easy but I appreciate the idea, and the final Bowser fight this time around is good since you utilise the game's main power-ups. The post-game is really good since you just continue to get more levels, which is awesome. The soundtrack is also quite spectacular. Songs like Double Cherry Pass, Beat Block Skyway, and Footlight Lane will be living in my head rent-free. This game does suffer from some of the same issues 3D Land has, like the fact you have to backtrack if you want to beat the final level. Again, if this was told to you in advance, I'd be more okay with it, since it gives me an opportunity to prepare, but nope. The second the player knocks the door after a long day of work, they are sent out to do the shopping. This is the only 3D Mario game on a console without a massive new idea or gimmick, so the game doesn't leave as lasting of an impression as the other games. This isn't a huge deal nowadays though, and what is left is a Mario game that thrives on well-designed platforming and fun multiplayer. A tier. Super Mario Run. I almost didn't add this game to the list since I forgot it existed, but decided to add it once I remembered it. So this is quite a unique Mario game since it is a mobile game. I think it's cool that Nintendo even tried mobile gaming in the first place, and I still think other Nintendo franchises could benefit from being on a phone. But what did Mario do when he made his way to the phones? Oh, he just went for it, I'm telling you, he just gunned it the whole time. So this is an autorunner similar to Subway Surfers, Temple Run, and even more similar to Rayman Adventures. The only control you have of Mario is tapping the screen to jump and swiping slowly to the left to pull Mario back. I think this works well for a mobile game, as the game probably wouldn't be as fun if you can control Mario completely. The campaign is pretty short, but each level has a set of pink coins to collect. Once you collect them all in a level, you unlock the purple coins, and after that, the black coins. The purple and black coins can genuinely be quite hard to find. The levels themselves are solid enough and work for what this game is. The item pool is small as expected, and the bosses are simple to adjust to the basic control scheme of the game. The best part of the whole package are the side modes, Toad Rally and Remix 10. In Toad Rally, you have to literally aura farm to impress Toads and get them to cheer you on instead of your opponent. It's pretty fun trying to get stylish combos and jumping on a sequence of enemies. Remix 10 has you blasting through 10 levels one after another while collecting 3 or sometimes 5 rainbow coins in each level. It is quite enjoyable to try and beat all 10 levels and get every coin. With these coins and even the normal coins, you can buy things like buildings and foliage to add to your kingdom. Some of these buildings allow you to play as other characters, and others reward you with rewards. No way. All of this is pretty decent content, so why is it that no one really cares about the game anymore? Maybe it could be because Nintendo stopped updating the game too early, which made people lose interest. Maybe because in Toad Rally you don't actually compete against other people. Maybe it's because the game was $10. But even then, I think the people who bought the game abandoned it pretty quickly. I think the biggest issue for me is the fact you need Wi-Fi to be able to play the game. If a mobile game needs Wi-Fi to be able to access it, that kills off a large majority of the player base who mostly play mobile games on a car trip, at school, or other places that aren't their house. I also think this game had a lot of potential. I think the main thing it's missing is an endless mode where you get to run through either an infinite level or an infinite amount of bite-sized levels. With all things considered, this is a cool game, but one I'm not too interested in playing anymore, and I'd much rather play Angry Birds. C tier. Super Mario Odyssey. Back in 2017 and 2018, I played this game a ton, and by that I mean I beat the game once, and after that, all I did was play around and ride a ghostly motorbike. So let's finally replay it. Jumping into this game felt really great because the controls are just incredible. Mario has never felt more fluid and precise. He feels like blue tack. This is all only enhanced by Mario's partner Cappy, who is definitely the best partner Mario has ever got. He allows you to reach longer distances, collect faraway items, and even take control of enemies, which is a really cool concept. Being able to take control of so many different characters is super entertaining, especially ones like Glydon, Bullet Bill, and Bulbous Being. The structure of the game is different to all other 3D Marios, since you explore a handful of larger worlds and collect moons in each of them. It's great to see a Mario game with so much creativity after a streak of Mario games with platforms. The soundtrack also accompanies this by going for various styles like Steam Garden's retro-sounding synths and Udon City's jazzy upbeat theme. One that particularly stands out to me is the Sand Kingdom's theme at night. It's just so chill and relaxing since it combines the typical Western theming with a more laid-back rhythm. There's also a variety of different things to do outside of collecting moons like Luigi's Balloon World, which is where you have to find balloons that other players have hidden. Not only is it quite fun, but also gives you a good amount of coins. Coins and purple coins have actual use in this game since they're used to buy outfits, souvenirs, and power moons. There's also Koopa free running, picture matching, Chevarian racing, Mario Kart, and more. The bosses are pretty good, especially ones like Mecha Wiggler, Robo Brood, and Mollusque Lancieux, il est très génial. Mais tort le fait mal. The point after the final boss is really excellent, and if you consider this a part of the final boss, then it's my favourite one in the whole series. With all that Mario Odyssey does, it makes your first experience playing the game magical, and it's definitely the best Mario game when it comes to your first playthrough. But because of that, it also makes other playthroughs not nearly as interesting. During my time playing through the game, even if I wasn't going at a fast pace, I would be finishing kingdoms in minutes. Since the Power Moon missions are mostly just finding them or doing little puzzles, you can breeze through the game and ignore most of the substantial content. Obviously, I don't think many people would want to do that, myself included, but it kinda shows how the missions in this game are not nearly as interesting as other 3D Mario's missions like Mario 64 and the Galaxies. This could be attributed towards the amount of moons, but I actually really admire how many moons were in this game. I don't have a problem with the quantity, I just wish there were more moons with a challenge. Take this moon in the Lost Kingdom for example. There's not a high chance you miss this moon since it's right next to the ledge, so why not put it at the end of a platforming challenge instead or something? My favourite moons in this game are the ones in the sub areas since you have to earn getting that moon, and I just wish there was more like that in the game. I don't know, it's a strange issue I have with the game that made my second playthrough not nearly as interesting. However, with all that being said, I don't really care. What you're left with is a game with exceedingly great controls, huge worlds to explore, plenty of characters to mess around with, hundreds of collectibles, and no sequel. I think it's fair to say that this game will continue to stand the rest of time, and for that, I will be putting it in S tier. Bowser's Fury. This is the third game in the supposed 3D world style if you want to pretend that exists. The story, if you even want to call it a story, involves Mario falling into a hole and waking up in this new area. The structure of the game is different again since you are now exploring one massive map with multiple islands to explore. On these islands are cat shines you need to collect by completing various platforming based challenges. I think it's great that you can pretty much do whatever mission you want at any time and there's pretty much no loading to bother you, especially you can skip every cutscene. To get from one island to another, you need to use Plessie, who is pretty fun to control, and there are even certain missions involving her. Every so often, Bowser's Fury will spawn, and will wreak havoc on Mario until you grab a shine or after waiting a minute or two. He can be used to collect more shines, or he can completely ruin you. You do get to fight the guy every so often once you collect the Giga Bell, which is a pretty enjoyable time. This style of Mario game has a lot of potential if they do it right, and this game serves as a good blueprint to whatever the next 3D Mario game is. The soundtrack of this game is also fantastic and arguably better than 3D World's. However, ever since this game has came out, there's something about it that rubs me the wrong way. I think it's the fact that the game feels a little generic to me. Sure, everything is a cat and all that, but that's kind of it. The game just drops you into this world and you just go along with it. There's no, gimmick this game has other than being very open. Every other Collectathon Mario has some neat thing it goes for. 64 was the first one, Sunshine has the Flood and Vacation setting, Odyssey has Cappy, Capturing and the Kingdom Exploration, and Bowser's Fury has Bowser Jr. The variety of missions is also quite slim. There's only 5 kinds of missions and they repeat in each island. I also don't really like how you can hold up to 5 of each item. It just makes the game way too easy in my opinion. If you could hold 1 of each item that would be fine, but having up to 30 items at your disposal at all times makes the game a cakewalk. And the game is also very short. I don't have a problem with short games, but I feel like this is the kind of game that could have had more meat on its bones. You could knock this game out in like 2 or 3 hours if you wanted. It's an odd case for a Mario game, but overall it's a solid enough experience. B tier. Super Mario Bros. Wonder. Finally, a 2D Mario game where Mario isn't looking straight ahead and Bowser sent everyone back to 2020. So this 2D Mario game is actually different from the last few 2D Marios because it drops the new name and comes up with completely new ideas. Firstly, this might be my favourite Mario game visually. There's so much charm and whimsy put into each animation, and it makes for a game that is fun to just watch and see the wacky ways Mario and the other playable characters are animated. Even the sound design when moving is really cool. The jump sound is the sound of plucking a ukulele, and a ground pound plays a drum roll, and when he lands it makes the noise of a cymbal. Very clever. These both match the silky smooth gameplay very well. This is the best controlling 2D Mario game so far. You get a fair amount of movement in the air, stopping after running feels good, and building up speed feels incredibly satisfying. The level design is pretty incredible as every stage has a unique gimmick. This is all because of the Wonder Flower, which changes up the level in a weird and unexpected way. This is such a good idea for a Mario game since it gives every stage its own strong identity. It's not even the Wonder Flower that makes the stages so great. There's a bunch of new enemies to encounter, loads of new gimmicks, and plenty of visual variety in the themes department. The items are pretty cool. The elephant fruit is strange but really useful since you can attack enemies and break blocks easier. The drill mushroom I've never really cared for since all you do is dig into the ground or ceiling, but I feel like it isn't utilized enough since there aren't really many levels with ceilings. My favourite power-up is definitely the bubble flower, which I would argue is one of the best designed power-ups in all of Mario, as unlike the other power-ups that give you momentum in the air, you actually need to be skilled if you want to be able to gain vertical movement with this item. I do wish there were more items though. I don't mind there being only 3 new ones, but having the fire flower as the only returning power-up is kinda lame. I would have appreciated more variety like the ice flower or even the mini mushroom. Some of the smaller levels also aren't that good, especially the search party ones. They suck since it just amounts to finding a hidden block or finding the correct pipe. The bosses are really underwhelming since you just fight Bowser Jr. 5 times. He doesn't even appear in every world. In some worlds you just progress without even fighting a boss. The final boss also didn't really interest me. The premise is interesting, but the execution is a little underbaked if you ask me. All in all, Mario Wonder is a brilliant 2D platformer with excellent levels and creative ideas, but I think some other areas could have been done better. A tier. And now, I am done. I really am an insane individual. Although I did enjoy doing this marathon and might do it for other game franchises. This project kicked off all the way back in August and I'm only getting it out now. Safe to say I won't be doing this again for a long time. Please like or hype this video if you enjoyed and subscribe for more. Now it's time to play good video games.